Hello, friends. Welcome to the Friendlies podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Jack Peglow. The other co-host who's with me every single week, my best friend, Rob Huang. Rob, it's been a big, interesting week. We had some game announcements and we had a big game drop. And we're recording and releasing on a sort of weird date because of all that. But I think it's going to turn out good because we got some good content. But how are you feeling?
We actually tried to record this last night, Thursday night. We're recording Friday morning.
The world didn't want it to happen.
It didn't. And then it gave us Nintendo news this morning. So I guess all in all, it was divine intervention telling us to wait. So yeah, we have a lot to talk about. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So no spoilers.
We will not spoil anything. You have our word. But I actually thought that maybe we should switch things up a little bit. Normally we go through the news and then talk about what games we're playing, but I feel like maybe it may flow better if we start out by asking Rob, what have you been playing this week?
I mean, The Last of Us 2 is installed on my PlayStation 4.
I've played through the intro chapter. We can I can give like an initial reaction to that if we want to.
Please do. I'm excited to play it, but I would love to know your thoughts on the introduction.
They definitely knew that the stakes were high because the intro segment of The Last of Us 1 is pretty powerful, to say the least.
Got it.
So it was obvious that they knew that they had some big shoes to fill. And I think ultimately it was probably going to be impossible to match that same emotional impact that The Last of Us 1's first scene had. Even so, there are some emotions happening.
Got it. I mean, that's pretty much as far as you'd want to say anything because you don't want to go into spoilers.
I will say that going into this game, I thought what was going to happen. I thought what was going to happen was going to happen. Like I was pretty sure that it was going to play out like it did. And then as soon as you start the intro chapter, it starts hitting you real heavy with that foreshadowing. So right. I was like, okay, all right. Whenever the payoff happened, I was already fully buckled up. Unlike the first game where you are not prepared.
Great. I guess one thing I should ask you is how much of the intro section is like tutorially, or is it kind of pretty much the same as The Last of Us 1, part 1, where you're just kind of going through the story like you're controlling your character, but you're not being really taught any of the game mechanics or anything like that? Like how much of that tutorial is in that intro section?
It's very similar to the first game in that like it tries to introduce mechanics organically, like as you go through, like you're running and then there's something you need to jump over, so it teaches you how to do that. Then there's something you need to crawl under, it teaches you how to do that. I mean, it's definitely like it you can tell it's a tutorial, but they do their best, and I think they do a decent job of making it feel organic.
Got it.
I feel like most games sort of do it like that nowadays.
Yeah. At least nowadays, yeah. It's not a full-fledged, like, here's 10 minutes to, like, work through all of the little kinks of, like, the game systems before we throw you into the deep end.
Right.
Yeah, oh, man. I am stoked. I'm super stoked to play it later today. we're recording this at 10:30. I have another podcast recording at noon, and then my favorite soccer team, Manchester United, is actually playing a soccer game again in the Premier League at noon. So I'll be watching that like as I record the podcast, and then once that's over, I have to make a run to Target to pick up some stuff, and then come back. So it'll probably be like 3 or 4.
We get it. We get it, dude. You're popular. We get it.
I have errands to run, man. I got things to do at home. I need like cleaning supplies and things like that. So I've been running low. So it's gonna be a while before I play, but I am still like I'm like itching to like just get my hands on it and go.
I'm also itching because the reviews. So overall, the reviews for this game were extremely positive. I'll pull up its Metacritic as I'm talking here, but very, very, very positive. It's currently sitting at 95, which I think is. Yeah. I think it was at 96 at one point. I think it's being review bombed right now because the user score is 3.4. Big surprise. But the reason I bring up the reviews is because there were a few reviews, and notably a few reviews from people that I respect quite a bit and whose opinions I feel like not only mirror my own, but are usually a little bit more thoughtful and nuanced than most people. And this isn't sort of like me taking a dig at the video game industry. This is just like, it's really hard to write a actually critical review that goes beyond like the game is fun without sort of it going against having to put a score on it. So you have to have reviewers that are willing to write a long review without giving it a score, which means that you're missing out on a lot of clicks because a lot of people just click to see that at the bottom.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, several reviews came out that had some things to say about the game that were not like incredibly negative, but they were critiques. Notably about how the story handles all of the violence that it wants to hit you over the head with. I'm really intrigued because I think we even talked about it on this podcast that one of my biggest worries about this game is that they are going to go too far overboard with making you feel bad. Because there's a fine line with that. You can be very heavy-handed and sort of lose the thread of, actually, we're trying to work on a theme here. And it goes from making you think about your actions to, okay, this is just torture porn.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how it plays out personally for me.
Yeah, actually, the GameSpot review actually brought that up too. Of there's certain moments where, of just thought of like, is this much killing really necessary? She said there were. It was Callie Pelagi who did it, and she said there were moments of, like you knew what was about to happen in terms of like the action, of like you getting spotted and you're gonna have to take these people out, but there's like this emotional like battle inside of you as a player, like controlling her and also watching the story of just like, man, I really wish like she would kind of sidestep this one, or like from an emotional standpoint where she's coming from and why she's doing this, but it also seems like it's maybe a little bit too much. So yeah, I think I totally understand that point. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see at least for me personally, how it feels once the game is all said and done.
Right.
They kind of set it up. If you've watched any of the trailers, they've pretty much set it up as like a revenge story. So, which is drastically different from the reason behind the killings and stuff in Last of Us Part 1, because Last of Us Part 1 was more about survival. It wasn't
right.
It kind of felt like killing was like a last resort because you're just trying to survive and get to that next place, the next point. And you're just having to maybe kill people in the game just as like as just because they're a roadblock for you getting to that next point. But this feels just like a vendetta. So, or at least from the trailers. So yeah, I'm interested to see how much of those emotions play a role in the game as a whole, and not just like in each sequence. Like I wonder if at the end of the game we'll be like, man, did I really need to like do all that? Like I'm to get to just this type of ending. And that's kind of the worry I had for this game too. So, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, we will keep you all posted. And also we promise to never spoil any of the game here. We may do a spoiler cast. We'll have to talk about that later, but
yeah,
it's definitely possible to talk about this stuff without spoiling plot points. So don't worry.
I concur.
But what else are you playing? Are you diving back into Xenoblade? Because I obviously have been playing the hell out of it.
Every once in a while, I'll still be playing Xenoblade, and then of course Animal Crossing I've dipped back into. So yeah, those are my two like not heavy games, because I totally realized that I was gonna be diving head deep into The Last of Us 2. So I wanted two lighthearted games to be playing alongside it. So those are mine. I know you've been playing some Animal Crossing, and of course your favorite game of all time, Smash.
Oh my god. I played some offline Smash for the first time since the Pandy started.
Got it.
And it was like finding an oasis after walking through the desert. It's so refreshing. It feels so much better. It's really hard for me to describe, because the real difference is like noticeable, but like small. But when you play it as much as I do, it really does make a big difference. It felt so good.
How was it set up? Just because we're still in the coronavirus pandemic and all that, and social distancing.
I
curious.
Myself and one other friend went over to one of our friends. So there were three of us spread out across three different couches, hanging out.
Nice. But I mean,
we didn't go anywhere because obviously we don't want to, and we trust each other enough to at least be in the same apartment together.
Got it. Yeah, that sounds like a piece of a life that was like a decade ago.
Right?
Yeah.
Forgotten customs.
Man, if only.
But yeah, that's what I've been playing.
That's our stuff.
Well, then let's move on over to the news of the week. Maybe someday we'll have a name for the news segment, but
we got a lot to talk about.
There's some good stuff. We'll kick it off since we're talking Switch games. And this is almost an honorary segment on the podcast, I feel like, talking about how well the Switch is selling. It's still selling well. Big surprise. The point we wanted to hit this week is that comparing the Switch to other consoles that have been out for this long, so 39 months the Switch has been on the market. If you compare it to every other console that's been out for that long, only the Wii and the PlayStation 2 have outsold it.
Incredible numbers.
The PlayStation 2, the best-selling console of all time, and the Nintendo Wii, probably the single hottest console buy during any one period of time, that one crazy Wii holiday season.
Yeah, I do remember the craze, right? It's kind of like how the Switch is right now. You just couldn't find it.
Right. It's really something. I mean, especially when you think about how this comes on the heels of arguably one of Nintendo's biggest disappointments in the Wii U.
Yeah.
This turnaround is insane.
I am how should I put this? Like I'm surprised, like I'm like surprised by it, but at the same time I'm not, because I kind of expected it with how well sales like were doing
Sure.
constantly. So yeah, there's definitely a bunch more benchmarks that it'll probably surpass over the next few years.
You would think.
If this continues, if they keep putting out first party games that are bangers, I mean,
Especially when if you can buy, how much is the Switch Lite? Like $200?
yeah,
You can buy a $200 Switch Lite as opposed to a $500 Xbox Series X or PS5.
mm-hmm. Yeah, with a lot of these games now becoming like crossplay, and you can also get a lot of these third party games on the Switch. Granted, it might be a little bit longer than release date. If you're all right with that, yeah.
And they're gonna keep putting out the amazing first party Nintendo games that everybody wants. And speaking of that, there is a Nintendo first party game coming out next month, and that would be Paper Mario, which we learned a lot more about this week.
Yeah, I'm super stoked for this game. I think you are too. The date that the game arrives, it's just like, man, there's so like, I do wonder how much of The Last of Us I'm gonna have beaten by the time that date comes, because I'm like super ready to play Ghost of Tsushima too. So, yeah. But in terms of Paper Mario, it looks like a return to form. The artwork is always like perfect.
It's incredible.
I love some of like the open world type sequences that you see, like running through like the hay, or like the tall like grass, riding like the little car through the desert. There's a lot of aspects of that I thought super cute. Would be super fun to play, and yeah, I think it's. I mean, I said last night when we were recording this, with our first try, it's being released with a lot less fanfare than I expected. So that's the only part I worry about, is that it won't get the amount of love that I think it should get. But I mean, who knows? It could just be one of those things where they realize they don't need to market it that well because they know it's going to sell well.
I think it's just another example of how unprepared they were for remote working. I think they would love to have marketed this a lot harder and had more videos about it, but they just didn't have the bandwidth or the manpower to make it happen.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I still think it'll do fine. I mean, Paper Mario's never been a huge seller anyway, so it's not like there are big numbers that this was expected or has to hit in order to be considered a success.
Kind of like a weird like cult classic of the Mario franchise.
Yeah, very, not small, but relatively compared to like mainstream Mario. Small fan base, but very passionate.
Mm-hmm. Very, very much so.
Speaking of a passionate fan base that's anything but small, the GTA community has a new place to call home. Well, it's the same place, but it's now officially its own thing. GTA Online is now a standalone entity outside of GTA 5.
I mean, this is Rockstar's moneymaker, right?
Yeah, it's video games moneymaker.
Yeah, it's like at the point where they don't really need to, or at least for the time being, they could be working on another game, but they don't have to worry about revenue because this thing is just pulling money for them.
I mean, it's been so successful that it basically like outlasted and overshadowed Red Dead 2.
Yep. Which is kind of sad, but I mean, I think both of us bounced off that game pretty hard.
Yeah, I was disappointed in that game, but that's another talk for another day.
Yep.
Moving right along, May of Overwatch fame is coming to Heroes of the Storm.
Another Overwatch. I think we counted what? She's the fourth?
She's either the third or the fourth, because I can't remember if Diva is actually in or not. But Tracer and Zarya are for sure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's Blizzard's MOBA game that's probably at the bottom of the pecking order in terms of Battle.net games. So
sure.
But they're still putting out content for it, which I respect.
Yeah. I think it's still pretty popular. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's probably the third most popular of that genre, but I think even still, it gets quite a bit of playtime.
Yeah.
Something that gets an incredible amount of playtime in another genre would be Fortnite. Did you tune into the big Fortnite event that happened this week?
I did not, but I did follow it along on Twitter, just seeing that um, people it capped out. People couldn't get in, and the Fortnite account was telling people to just watch streams of your favorite players or their actual live stream if you wanted to get in and get in touch with it. So that's the extent of which I know about this event.
Well, a lot of people took that advice because the numbers for their viewership are staggering. They had 6.1 million viewers on YouTube and 2.3 million on Twitch.
Incredible.
It always surprised, like I forget how well YouTube does on these live events.
Yeah, I think for us, I think at least for you and me, the biggest thing that I think we're out of touch with is how popular it still is and constantly is with the younger gaming crowd, particularly kids that are like either early in their teens or like into their late teens. And that really hasn't dropped off. If anything, that's increased, especially if you have like an older sibling that plays it and you're, just getting into the gaming. And also on top of that, how easily accessible the game is. You can play it on your phone, you can play it on any console, you can play it on PC.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just for you and I, like we grew up, I don't have any siblings, but I remember you telling me, a lot of the games that you grew up playing are because of your brother and playing with him. I think that's probably the case of Fortnite too now, with a lot of kids younger, like growing up into it, is because they see like their older siblings or older friends playing it.
Totally.
And that's like keeping like their big numbers where they are. Like we played a bunch of it when it first dropped too, but we haven't played probably in years at this point. So
I don't think I've played since before they even had seasons.
Yeah. We got in on the ground floor and then we never came back.
Yeah. It's not that I don't like it. I thought it was really fun. I just had other stuff to play.
Yeah, that's probably as I said, that's probably what it is for the numbers. But that's still like impressive for just like a season ending event. It wasn't even like a live show, or concert or anything like that. It was just an event.
Right. But it happened and it was big. They did some cool stuff. So they changed the whole map. That's what sort of happens. This is what happened is they're moving from one season to the other, and they usually do a big event like this to transition. But what was interesting this time is that during the event, at one point the players were sort of warped out of the map and into a first-person perspective in an office. And then someone sort of walked in and was like, wait, you're here? You can see me? And then they sort of phased back into the map. So it seems like Fortnite may be doing some interesting sort of fourth wall breaking kind of stuff. I'm going to be intrigued to follow that along.
Or first person, you think? You might add that in?
You never know.
I'd be interested to try it if they do bring that back or bring that in. So
could I interest you in a different game, a game that's been out for a long time but is just now coming to PC?
Another re-release?
Persona 4 Golden. Hit PC this week.
I already own a copy of this on my PlayStation Vita. Which is actually sitting right next to me right now. So, yeah, it's crazy how they brought this. I mean, this opens the avenue for pretty much all of the Persona games to make it its way to PC at some point.
You would think, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we see P5R there. or Persona Scramble.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
any
we're
of the-
still sitting here waiting for a Persona Scramble Western
Yeah.
release date.
Also, I think the next one we actually might see that makes its jump to PC is the dance game. Because I would think that that'd be easier to port than any of the RPGs.
Would make sense.
Mm-hmm. People would buy it. Alice raking in that cash.
Yeah. Licenses print money. I probably won't get it, but I'm excited for people that didn't have a chance to play it because who has a Vita?
I do.
You're the only one. Moving right along, Sony this week teased a completely redesigned UI for the PS5. I'm going to quote the VP of UX design, Matt McLaurin. Apologies if that is totally incorrect. He is promising an overhauled user interface of the PS5, describing the new software as a very interesting evolution of the OS. He says it's a 100% overhaul of the PS4 UI and some very different new concepts. As a UI, it's practical first, but it's a whole new visual language and a complete re-architecting of the user interface. It's more subtle than flashy, but no pixel is untouched, he adds. I'd be down for a new UI. The PlayStation UI isn't bad, but it could use some improving.
I mean, there wasn't a significant change between the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4.
Right.
Like, it was pretty much the same type of setup. So this kind of makes it sound like it's going to be drastically different, at least from a visual standpoint, from what we've seen the last two iterations. So
it would make sense. I mean, the console itself has sort of shifted away from being very rectangular, very sharp edges to a little bit more flowy. So it would make sense for the UI to sort of match that change.
Yeah. I do know also, like, a lot of the PlayStation, at least the PlayStation 4, it came with a lot of programs like pre-installed because I think they wanted to sell it as more of like an entertainment system for like your family.
Sure.
But I think it kind of feels like they're like just tossing that out the window and it's going to be more focused on the games. So yeah, if that's the case, I would suspect that you'd probably drop a lot of those, which opens up a lot more avenues for you because you're not in the restraints of having like add these programs into it somehow, like into the user interface, and just be able to open it up just so people can customize it and however whatnot for their games and whatever is comfortable to them. So yeah, this is the one thing I want to see, man, is the what the UI looks like.
And speaking of customization, one other thing that he hinted at was that there would be a lot more options to make the outside, like the actual physical box of the console, unique. I'm reading another quote from him, what is his name? Matt. Another quote from Matt here. This hardware is also customizable in ways previous gens weren't. He even teases a maybe response to questions about a black version of the PS5 and that there will be a special edition for everyone.
My money is on the white part, like the outside, being like something you can pop off and replace.
I don't know about that, especially if it's the one with the disk drive, but there's probably going to be a lot of different colors. Like I bet would not be surprised. I don't know, bet maybe a little strong. Would not be surprised if even within this holiday season, within the launch window, there is a black Miles Morales Spider-Man PS5.
Yep. The black and red one with like the Spider-Man like graffiti tattoo on the side.
Black and red, and maybe the blue glow is yellow for his electricity.
Yeah. I could see that.
I think we're going to see a lot of different colors.
That would put me in a very big pickle of deciding which one I want.
It's all about the aesthetic, man.
It is. It's how it looks on your entertainment stand or like next to your TV.
You got to look good to play good.
It's all about.
Do we want to take a moment to just say Bugsnax a couple times and get the song stuck in everybody's head?
Sure. Oh, man.
Because just saying it puts the song in my head.
this game has weirdly become like such a like a memeified game, and that I feel like it's actually gonna do well, because it was like so outrageous.
Yeah, I think it'll outdo Octodad, which is saying something because Octodad did really well for an indie game.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I'm bringing it up is because they did the Bugsnax team. Young Horses is the dev team. They did an interview with usgamer.net where they talked all about the game. I'm going to read some highlights here. This is Philip Tibetowski, the co-founder, who's speaking. It's been really nice, he says, of the reaction to the reveal of Bugsnax. Not being able to talk about this for like 6 years and then all of a sudden everyone knows about it. It's pretty fun and scary. Bugsnax is the big project the Young Horses has been hammering away at for the better part of a decade now, after having turned the student project born Octodad into a full game in 2014. In Bugsnax, you play as a journalist. I'm no longer quoting, but you play as a journalist that's meeting an adventurer on the island to make a film about the Bugsnax. But when you show up, she's gone, nowhere to be found. And from there, you have to find out what happened to her and also learn about the island, what it is, where these creatures come from. But they do sort of allude to, you saw a little bit of hints of this in the trailers and maybe some of the gameplay too, that there's a bit of a darker side that they haven't quite revealed yet. It becomes even more pronounced when the dev team talks about their influences for the game, because obviously they give like whimsical things, but then I'm going to start quoting again, just read it from there. What's there to make of a nod to Dark Cloud, Level 5's action RPG that challenged Zelda's primacy in the early 2000s? What is creative director Kevin Zune hinting at by including BioShock amongst his inspirations for Bugsnax? Tibetowski remains coy when asked about these, but tosses out one more. The movie Fern Gully, given its consideration for the environment, might tread similar ground as Bugsnax. Let that sink in.
That's a lot of different types of games.
For a game that all we really saw so far is like cartoon singing.
Yeah.
Those are some heavy references.
Yeah. I actually could see what he meant by the BioShock stuff, because you saw at the end of the trailer, there's that one dude in the background who said like he ate something and then it like his parts of his body like turned into what he ate, right?
Mm-hmm. There's another clip that people have been showing just on that same line. Do you remember the scene where there were slabs of ribs walking around?
Yeah.
They're walking around a sort of crater that has like human skeletons in it.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah. So this could be a really dark game that we just don't know about yet.
Right.
And that could be like the reason they brought up like Dark Cloud.
Right.
Like just the aesthetics of the game. But yeah. Oh boy. That game took a turn that I did not expect it to turn into.
Yeah. That's why like I started reading this interview just thinking it would be a nice little touch, and then I got to that point. I was like, "Oh, we need to talk about this."
Yeah. Color me intrigued. I'm interested to at least see more of like the gameplay mechanics, because we saw like in-game footage, but we didn't see like what the gameplay was going to be like, right? So, yeah, I wasn't interested then, but I am slightly interested now.
I still want to see more, but it's definitely got a lot more potential than I realized.
Yeah, I could totally see this game being one of those games between our buddies of just like screenshotting, like laughing, like throwing into the Discord and just like memeing the hell out of.
Totally.
As we play it. But yeah, I'm with you. I need to see more gameplay.
Something we're not going to be seeing gameplay from as soon as we thought we would. Unfortunately, pour one out. Cyberpunk has been delayed yet again.
To November?
So originally it was June or July, I believe, and then it got moved to September 17th, and it has now been pushed back to November 19th.
A ways away.
when they announced this, people were initially worried because that's putting it firmly in the next gen release window. But today they came back and clarified that no matter where, so if you buy a PS4 or an Xbox One copy, it will be 100% compatible if you plug that on up into the next gen.
Which is lovely.
Which I think that's basically going to be standard practice for a lot of games coming out now, but
yeah,
it's still it's still a new enough concept that people need to go ahead and clarify.
Yeah, I think if I do end up getting a PlayStation 5 in the launch window, then I'd probably hold off playing, like fully diving into Cyberpunk until I get that and just play it as like my launch title game on there.
My goal is to finally have a PC built by the time this drops. And the delay made it easier, so thank you.
Yeah, PC parts are nice to come by right now because you just order a lot of them off the internet for pretty good prices.
Mm-hmm. So
but we can move on.
We'll see you in November, Cyberpunk. But that I think that closes out our news dump of the week. Unless you have anything you'd like to add.
No, there's a bunch in our actual rounds that I want to dive into. So let's get to it.
Round one.
Round one
is right back to Sony. They released a lot of additional information about the big first-party games that they announced at their event last week. Do you want to start with Horizon or Spider-Man?
Let's go with Horizon.
So, I'm going to skip this. We had a little bit that people were making a big deal about Horizon seemingly paying tribute to Breath of the Wild. I think it's mostly coincidence, but it is kind of cool to see if it's maybe just an homage that they're paying. Still, well done. Maybe they're hinting that it's going to be more open in the way that Breath of the Wild was, but who can tell?
Yeah.
The cooler part, I think, especially for you, is that there were a lot of Bay Area landmarks that you could see throughout the trailer. People went through and sort of pointed some of them out. You have the Ferry Building, the Palace of Fine Arts, the Golden Gate Bridge was the obvious one, but those two, and then the Transamerica Pyramid was also visible, City Hall. That's really cool to see. And they did a good job with that in the previous game, and it seems like they're doubling down this time.
It's still super weird to me that, like, out of all those, like, the Transamerica Pyramid seems like the least degraded, but it's like the tallest building out of all of those things, and it's supposed to be like hundreds of years after the extinction, like the original extinction of humanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it feels weird that like the tallest building is like the one that's like still standing, like the most like
triangles
intact.
Triangles are the sturdiest shape in the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, you are right. But yeah, it's super cool to see these landmarks. I'm super excited. I love it whenever games dive into like an area that you're familiar with, and you can get a feel for that area, what it would look like in a different time or a different timeline. And so yeah, I'm super stoked.
They also released a video going further in depth about some of the things that we saw in the trailer. I'll just give a quick list and then we can discuss. There's virtually no loading screens, no matter if it's fast traveling or loading from checkpoints. The map is bigger, but not only is it bigger, it's also much deeper, and that includes verticality and also the underwater sections, which we saw that Aloy is gonna go swimming quite a bit. There are dozens of new machines. Take that as literally as you will. And there are new tribes, both peaceful and hostile.
Yeah. I mean, that big turtle machine.
They gave names for that. The turtle, I'll look it up. I know that the elephant is something like Thunder Trunk or something.
They gave names?
Yeah.
But yeah, the game looks like soup. I don't know how to explain this. Like it looks like if Horizon Zero Dawn 1 was like the ground zeros, like equivalent for Metal Gear 5. Metal Gear Phantom Pain. Like, two, just from what they're saying and what it looks like in the trailers, looks like what the Phantom Pain was, which was like just super like open, huge game and way bigger than like the little prologue before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's making Horizon Zero Dawn 1 feel like a prologue.
Which is insane because that game is massive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very much is. I'm excited. I'm actually excited to see how big, like, of a map around the Bay Area they're going to make this feel. Because you saw a lot of San Francisco. I do wonder.
They also said that I think the map was going to stretch from like Utah to the coast.
Right. So it's going to be huge. And how in depth they go is going to be very, very interesting.
Literally and figuratively, because like we said, Aloy's going swimming.
Yep. So now you have verticality added to it, right? Because you're going under, and you can probably climb a bunch of stuff too.
Hopefully the climbing is a little bit less linear this time.
Yeah, because I think the only real verticality you got was going up the tall necks,
or the yellow scripted sections.
Right. This might be a lot more Assassin's Creed feeling, I guess, when it comes to verticality, or I hope it is, where you can kind of climb everything.
Right. I'm trying to find the name. Whatever. I'll find it probably when we've already moved on. I think the only other thing I wanted to talk about was that the game being able to port you all the way across the map with no loading. I don't think we fully realize how incredible that is yet.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you won't feel it until you have it in your hand.
Right.
Or like you're seeing the screen and you can like clearly tell, like people can say like, oh, it shaves off, like 3 seconds or 3 to 5 seconds of like wait time. And you know how long that lasts, but you don't really know how it feels until like you load into a game and then it's just like you click start and it's like you're already in, and just things like that. So yeah, it's something that I'm like super excited for, but I still don't have like a firm grasp of how it's gonna feel to me until I actually have it. And I think that's the case with the majority of people too.
I'm just like trying to imagine like instantaneous fast travel is such like a luxury.
Yeah.
It's going to be wild.
What do you think? The fastest game that had fast travel over like the last couple of years, I would probably say is God of War.
I think I'm the wrong person to ask with my launch PS4.
Well, I think for me, I would say God of War because the load screen, there wasn't really much of a load screen, right? Like you kind of like, if you wanted to quick travel, like you go into that like alternate dimension for a second, and then you like walk in through another door, and it like opens up. That was your load screen. So you didn't really have like a black screen that you were just waiting for the game to load into. But yeah, I can't imagine what it's going to feel like.
Oh, I forgot to say the other, maybe even the biggest point that came out of this video is that they put their release date, quote unquote, as 2021, officially saying it's not coming this year.
Yep. I think you're right with like a February or March date. Yep. I think that's like a solid.
It feels right to me.
Mm-hmm. What else we got?
Real quick before we move on. The turtles are shell snappers, the new sort of solar powered bird pterodactyls, sunwings.
Yeah.
And the mammoths are tremor tusks.
Tremor tusks. All right. Well, there's a lot more new names that we're going to need to learn.
Yeah. They're nice and alliterative, though. Spider-Man. Same sort of deal. I think they basically just gave these developers a template and said, we need more information to give people, and they both put out stuff. So I'll run through the quick little checklist for the Spider-Man info. Big priority placed on making Miles feel unique and like his own Spider-Man. He's currently training under Peter when the game starts. It takes place a year after the end of the first game, set right around Christmas, apparently. They wanted to make both traversal and combat feel different than Peter. So he swings much more flamboyantly, like he's flailing more, he's being more acrobatic, and combat is also supposed to reflect that. He's currently living in Harlem, which I don't remember if that was in the first game. But regardless, they did say that making the map feel new was a big priority as well. The new crime gang is a very high-tech group of thugs, whatever that means. They reiterated that the game is similar in scope to Uncharted Lost Legacy, reiterated the near instant loading that Horizon talked about. And they also made sure to note that, yes, this is about Miles, but Peter's story isn't done either.
Just a spin-off, like fully developed own game. It's pretty much what it is. So yeah,
because
I
the
do
first
wonder
one
if
sold
this
like
does
hotcakes,
well.
and they want this one on the new console when it drops.
Yeah, I do wonder. Like, do you think they might go this route with like what Call of Duty has done?
No, I think they just wanted to get this hugely successful game out when the new console drops to entice people to buy.
Yeah, if that's the case, I just hope that it's not like a fully priced, like a $60 game.
We'll see.
We will see over the next few months.
But I think that's all. I didn't see any for any of the other games, so we can go ahead and move on to round two.
Round two.
I mean, this one's an interesting, fun one too.
Randomly ended up being a really big week for Pokemon news. Sort of out of the blue, the Pokemon Company announced that they were going to be doing a big trailer event, or however you want to call it. So we all tuned in and were treated to Pokemon Smile right off the bat.
Absolutely lovely.
Pikachu's going to help you brush your teeth.
I think it's awesome for kids. I know my niece and nephew. I sent it to my buddy, and I mean, I just called them my niece and nephew, but I sent it to them, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll probably use this for like our 3-year-old, like just to make it easy."
Totally. The sort of single note that I had about this is that this is the sort of app that the Pokemon Company loves. They love a way to integrate their stuff into another aspect of your life.
Yep, absolutely, and they're trying to like just integrate themselves into like your daily life.
Yep,
right, as much as possible.
They are the most successful media brand of all time for a reason.
Yeah, because once you figure out how to help your kids brush their teeth, then they launch this cafe game so that you can distract them as well. Like,
yeah, the cafe game doesn't do it for me. Kind of zoned out, honestly. But
it kind of feels like
cute.
a gacha game, right?
It looks cute.
Yeah,
that's about all I have to say about it. And then we all collectively passed out because Rob, they went and did it.
The funny thing was, I actually told you the night before. Was like, I wonder if they do like a Pokemon Snap, right?
You must have had a man on the inside, because that is exactly what they did. Pokemon,
crazy.
It's new Pokemon Snap.
Oh,
that's literally what it's called, for those who don't know.
It says, I rewatched the trailer and it says in-game footage, but it's not like gameplay. or like in-game engine.
It says that at the end though, when it's obviously like a cutscene.
Right. But hopefully the game looks like that. Like it's not just the opening sequence like before the start screen comes up.
I think that's much ado about not much, because I wouldn't worry too much about that.
What do you think the odds are of them releasing some type of way that you could print your shots?
As in like a Labo printer?
Yeah, either that or just like they have like an online system set up that you can like upload it to, and then so you can get like a high quality image like downloaded, not just like a screenshot off of your Squidge. Because it is like a game that's like purely based around the pictures, and you know people have been posting that the blockbuster Pokemon Snap thing that they used to have, where you can bring in like your game cartridge or your save cartridge, and then get it printed.
Mm-hmm.
So
not only that, I know some of my local Blockbuster would even like. Remember how you could have your photos would have scores?
Yeah.
The highest scoring photo that was submitted for that week would get like a free game rental.
That was awesome. Those days were so great.
But it looks super dope. I did want to point out that one of the coolest things that the original game did was there was this mechanic where you could trigger like special events, basically, where if you led a certain Pokemon over to another one, they would interact in a way that made a really unique photo that was worth a lot of points. It seems like that's back. In the beginning of the trailer, we see a Scorbunny and a Pichu hanging out, and then later in the trailer, they're napping on Torterra, which leads me to believe that the player probably did something to bring the three of them together.
How many apples did we throw in the original game?
How many pest balls? Pester balls? One of the two.
Yeah. Like it was insane. Like we probably could have fed a village with the amount of apples that we threw in that game, like trying to trigger things.
Well, you better get ready, because we're gonna do it again.
I'm so ready. No date though, so slightly bummed out.
Soon is the date. How soon? We have a game for July, so we talking August? We talking August Pokemon?
Oof. Oh man, that'd be awesome.
I'd be all over it. It did look good. It didn't look sort of like alpha footage.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, yeah, it's been how long since the first one?
Like 20 some years.
Yeah, and we never got a sequel. And the game, if I remembered correctly, did pretty well, which was surprising that they never put out a sequel.
I did laugh at there was a quote recently from the Pokemon company that said that they didn't want to put out a new Pokemon Snap unless it could be different or unique than the first one, which is rich coming from the company that puts out the same mainline Pokemon game every time they put out a mainline Pokemon game.
True.
Speaking of mainline Pokemon, the Isle of Armor DLC dropped after this trailer. So now you can go in. It's probably already downloaded on your Switch. And if you've bought the expansion, you can head on over to the Isle of Armor. And even if you haven't, you can have access to all of the old Pokemon that have returned, including my boy, Caesar. He's back.
Caesar's back. There's like Executor, like Starmie and Staryu, Kangaskhan. Like, there's a bunch of like the Gen 1s that I really like. Cubone. Like, if you don't think my new roster is going to be fully made of 3 Cubones and 3 Farfetch'd, you are sorely mistaken.
I love it. You're like a gym leader. You have a theme.
I do. It's they have weapons. Like they are holding a weapon.
There's some really funny sort of things that have come out from this new DLC. Like they added at one point in the new wild area, you can have a follow Pokemon, which is something that people have been sort of asking for since it was a thing in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and then never again. But the way they implemented it is that the Pokemon you put out to follow you has the same movement speed that they do when you're in Pokemon Camp. So some of them are really slow, and you can just like leave them behind.
Oh.
There's a lot of glitches that have been video captured with this following stuff.
Why would you do that, Nintendo?
Like Pokemon warping because they get stuck somewhere. It's funny. There's also a clip of, so they put a Wailord in the new wild area, and it's huge. It's the size it should be. But if you have your own Wailord following you and you pull up next to it, yours is like a third of the size that it should be. because we can't have nice things.
Yeah, can't have everything.
Honestly, maybe the biggest news of this, I mean, the biggest news is Pokemon Snap, but maybe the second biggest news is not anything about the Isle of Armor or anything. It's that there is another event that's happening next week. And this is supposed to be some real big news. Like so big that it wasn't going to fit in this past week's event.
Yeah. I think they're branding this as like their own version of the Direct, right? It's not like a Pokemon Direct anymore. It's like it's Pokemon Presents. And I thought it would be a one-off thing, but they're making the second one also Pokemon Presents. So maybe this is the new branding that they're going to use going forward.
So we know that this is supposed to be really big. The general consensus on the internet seems to be, and I would be extremely ecstatic, that this is hinting at the Generation 4 remakes that we've been due for a while.
Yeah.
I would love that. Generation 4 is maybe my favorite generation of games. Not generation of Pokemon, generation of games. Love the region. Love the characters. It's awesome. But it's maybe a little pessimistic. Maybe it's the pessimist in me. Hears that, looks at sales numbers and says, "Oh God, I hope it's not Let's Go Johto." And if you like Pokemon Let's Go, no shade. It's a fun game. It's not what I want when I play a Pokemon game. And if they ditch the remake formula that they'd been using and switch over to Let's Go's, I am going to have a cry.
I mean, the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee did pretty well in terms of
sold over 10 million units.
Right. So despite like
or a million, sorry, a million, not 10 million
community, like if they did that well, I'd suspect that they would kind of go that same route again.
I know. That's why I'm being pessimistic about it.
Yeah. That sucks. That sucks for the older people.
How are you going to do Gen 4 dirty like that?
Yeah. But I would love to see Gen 4, like, at least from like an aesthetic perspective, of like a remake of, with the new engine and stuff like that.
Totally. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. So that's happening on the 24th, which I believe is next Thursday. Wednesday. So we'll probably record after that. You'll hear our reactions.
Yeah.
I will either be jumping up and down or sobbing.
Just got to be praying hard for divine intervention, that someone changed someone's mind.
Arceus.
The prep meeting.
Arceus, please. As I keep my fingers crossed, we can move on to round 3.
Round 3.
And this is your time to shine.
Yeah.
Because it's recapping EA Play. And there's a specific thing that happened in there that you need to talk about, because the passion, it's there.
Yeah, I mean, we did a live stream while I watch long on Twitch. And you can go to Twitch to rewatch it if you'd like. But yeah, let's run through this. This isn't actually in order, but I tried to keep it in order as much as possible. So first thing was Sims, which is on Steam, available now. And they said other games that'll hit Steam include Dead Space 3 and Titanfall 2, with EA Access also joining Steam later this fall, which is surprising to me because they have their own service on Origin, but they're hopping onto Steam, which is weird. I don't know why you would compete against yourself.
I think it sort of speaks to just the sort of widespread adoption of crossplay that's going to happen with this next generation.
Yeah. So at this point, I guess any money is money, right? So even if Steam takes a cut, like you're still getting profit because you're selling their game on there.
Right.
So yeah. Yeah, and then they also like put in this weird like little anecdote that 7 Switch games are coming over the next 12 months. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually pretty impressive. I'm curious to see what those 7 games are. Granted, it's probably like FIFA and Madden and it's all inclusive in there, but 7 games from EA all making their way over to Switch at some point, including Apex Legends, which debuted like the return of shotties and snipers with like a new like addition of like portable revives. Like you get like this portable revive device for each character when you drop into the game, and you can use it once at any point and revive your teammates wherever you want. And then there's also there was like a hint of a new legend like coming out of this like bunker type thing at the very end of the trailer. They also said that it's coming for Switch and Steam, and also crossplay across all 5, which is PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, Steam, and Origin.
Yeah, so, like I said, I think we should get used to that. I think that's going to be a thing for most games going forward.
Yeah, granted, if you're playing on console versus someone on PC, like you're going to be severely handicapped.
Yeah, I'm sure they will have different cues for mouse and keyboard.
Yeah. And then they went into 3 indie games. Faye developer Zoink with Lost in Random, a game called Rocket Arena, which will have crossplay enabled, where it's just like a hero shooter, but with only rockets.
Reminds me of like
abilities.
It reminds me of like Quake, but in Fortnite's aesthetic.
Yeah. It had like that Rare vibe too, right? It like the Sea of Thieves type look.
Sure.
And then of course the Way Out director, who basically he's the guy that cussed out the Oscars at the Game Awards. Was it last year?
A couple of years ago, I think.
Or a couple of years ago, yeah. He's back with another game. He's definitely a character.
Oh yeah.
And then yeah, they showed off FIFA and Madden. They didn't show off much. It was just like another engine trailer. FIFA on their Twitter page, I believe, said that they have another thing like to talk about the details in August. But one thing I found on their Instagram page was that if you buy FIFA or FIFA 21 and you buy it on the Xbox One or the PS4, you get a free upgrade to next gen, and all of the inroads you have made in Volta or Ultimate Team in FIFA 21 carries over when you upgrade to the next gen console, so you won't have to start from scratch.
You love to see it,
which is huge. And then of course, Star Wars Squadrons.
Now this is the time
Woo!
to get hype. This is hype Rob time.
Oh baby. I mean, this is exactly what I wanted, and our friend Ben said the exact same thing, is that they need to nail how it feels to fly. But at the very least, from what we saw, they nailed the feeling of you feel like inside the cockpit, right?
Those are some good looking cockpits.
A lot of like your ship's like, power and, stock of weapons and like shields and where you want to deploy them. along with a bunch of customization options for your ships and your pilot. Like it's so awesome. And then they also already announced like there's going to be no microtransactions, so like there's no like roles or free to play or what's it pay to win type of stuff. I think EA's learned their lesson after Battlefront. So yeah, let me just run you down through some of the stuff. There's a full campaign with 2 created characters, one on each side, one of the New Republic and one of the Imperials. The story takes place after Episode 6 because one of the first lines you hear is that the second Death Star is gone. So yeah, it's like right after that. And then yeah, it says you alternate between the 2 characters that you created back and forth. And I think it's kind of like one of those things where it sets you up to play multiplayer. So it's forcing you to play as like ships in the New Republic, like your X-Wings, your Y-Wings, your U-Wings, your A-Wings. And then it also forces you to play as like the TIE fighters, interceptors, bombers, and so on. They also announced the 3 specific multiplayer modes. One is just dogfight, which is just a 5v5, just straight on battle. And then they also announced fully like what was it? Squad fights, where it's like multi-stage based, where it's like a dogfight in the middle, and then based on the winner of that, you either have to protect 2 like support ships or bomb 2 support ships, and then you have to take on like the big main flagships by taking out specific key points on it. And that looked awesome. And then also like before the game starts, like you're in like a social hub with like your friends or your squad, and you can kind of talk through your tactics and the map and figure out like what your loadout as a squad is going to be, like what ships you're going to take out because it's squads of 5. Like, oh, man, it looks absolutely awesome.
I do wonder how they're going to keep that from being just the most toxic place in the world for like solo queue people though.
Yeah, it might not be great for solo queue people. This is definitely going to be one of those games that you're going to want to play with a friend or 2. But man, I am so hyped. And then the added thing was that they said the game is going to be fully playable in VR, which, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine being inside of a cockpit of an X-Wing and like being able to like swivel your head to like look over your shoulder and things like that. Like even my dad's excited and he's like, should we buy a VR device? So man, there's not much more I can say about this game other than I want to see more. And I'm so excited and I can't wait for October 2nd.
It looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you. I'm glad you're on my team. A couple more notes from the EA Play. This is from GameSpot. It said DICE, EA Motive, BioWare, and Criterion Games showed off a little bit, like teased. Criterion specifically is currently working on the Need for Speed franchise after taking several years to focus on other projects. DICE is working on making Battlefield even bigger than before. BioWare, meanwhile, will continue to work on games with rich story and characters, and alongside Star Wars Squadrons, EA Motive is working on a new IP. This game will feature some degree of player-created content. And the BioWare thing is where it's interesting because it showed off a very close-up of like a character model and like its eyes moving back and forth. And a lot of the internet has figured out or speculated that it looks very much like a Dragon Age character.
Yeah, that sort of like pulsing throne area thing also looked very Dragon Age.
Yeah. So it feels like they're teasing that. Maybe it's to come in another EA Play down.
I mean, we know that they've been working on Dragon Age, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Just a matter of when now. And then the one last thing they did was Skate was announced. They didn't actually say it was Skate 4.
Right.
But they said they are developing a Skate game.
What do you think? Is it Skate 4? Do you think it's that? Do you think it's something else?
I mean, the thing I saw on the internet was apparently there's rumors of a Skate mobile game. So maybe that's what it is. But judging by the fact that they didn't mention anything and it was very, very like top layer, like, hey, we're developing, like you guys willed it into existence. We're developing a Skate game. does make it sound like they're starting from scratch. Like it's like a full on like game build from the ground up, and they like have just started. So I highly doubt it's like a highly rumored, this is what they've been working on type thing, but more of a, yeah, we had stuff we were working on, but we had to scrap it, and we're going to start everything from scratch. Kind of like the Metroid Prime ordeal that they're starting all over again. So I think that's where they are. I think it is Skate 4, but they're probably not going to say it's Skate 4. Maybe it's like new Skate.
I could buy that.
Yeah. But that was it. That was all of EA Play.
It's a lot of stuff. Lot of exciting things.
Was there anything that piqued your interest?
The Dragon Age stuff is dope. I like Dragon Age quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm sort of reading through this. Yeah, I think Dragon Age, the little Dragon Age teaser is probably the best. I'm just like the rest of the games. I am excited for people that like them. They're just,
yeah.
I'm not as into them.
I can agree with that.
I've never been a big flight sim player, but Squadron looks rad. Looks real good.
Yeah, it looks, man. I'm gonna look on next gen too. I'm like super excited for. Oh boy, that was a lot of stuff we ran through today.
There's one more thing. In true Nintendo tradition, we're going to announce a Smash fighter at the very end. One more thing. But we're not going to announce a fighter. We're going to announce that just this morning, Nintendo let loose that they will be revealing and really going into it's a 35-minute in-depth look at the new Smash fighter from ARMS, and that's happening Monday, the 22nd.
Yeah, we're gonna get more Smash news. I mean, those 35-minute ones actually go by really fast.
And I love these because Sakurai nerds out about the character design, and it's fun to see.
Yeah, and he like plays like with two controllers in two hands, which is like incredible.
He's a god. Nintendo also was sure to put it in no uncertain terms. They literally followed up their announcement with a tweet that said, "There will be no further new fighter reveals other than a fighter from ARMS in this live stream." Don't get your hopes up, people.
Dang it.
I mean, they're starting to realize if they don't say it, people are going to be mad. If they do say it, they might be mad now, but it's not as bad.
Yeah, get ahead of the madness.
So come next week, we'll know who it is. I bet the fighter drops that day too.
We have a lot. We're gonna have a lot to talk about next week.
Would not be surprised at all if the fighter, because the announcement is, I think it said 7 a.m. Pacific. I bet the fighter drops that evening.
Yeah, or even just like, yeah. Usually it's been evenings, huh? Where they did like you have to update your game and then it just drops with it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, maybe it's time to drop back into Dojo again.
It's always open, baby.
Dojo's always open.
On that note, looking ahead to what's going on next week, I think we should wrap it on up unless you have anything else.
No, I think that's it.
It's been an exciting week, and next week has the potential to outdo it. You love to see it.
Yeah. If you're listening to us and you want us to talk about certain things, reach out. Let us know.
You can reach out to me on Twitter at Jack Peglow. You can reach out to the podcast at FriendliesPod.
You can reach out to me at Rob11HWANG.
You can send us an email, friendliespodcast@gmail.com. You can leave a review on any of our many platforms. Or you could send me a letter. But you have to find my address first. I'm not telling you.
Yeah. That'd be actually really creepy.
Please don't. I love you all. but don't send me anything in the mail.
And with that, I think
It's time to go home.
it is.
Looking forward to next week. Hitting the lab with the new arms fighter. Until then, thank you all for tuning in.